She stood in the ruins of a saga she didn't build, a figure cloaked in mystery and light, surrounded by legends she never knew and legacies she never carried. The wind whispered names she hadn't earned: Skywalker, Jedi, Chosen. But her silence spoke louder than prophecy ever could. She did not rise from ashes. She stepped over them, untouched by fire, untouched by fate. The stars once told the tale of a broken family, of a boy born from the Force, of a fall, of redemption, of love found and lost again. But then came a new face, untouched by time, untouched by war, untouched by consequence. And in her rise, something sacred fell. The echoes of Anakin and Luke were buried beneath her brilliance. But brilliance without burden is only glare, not light. She held the saber like it was always hers, as if the weight of generations did not tremble in its hilt, as if it had never been dropped by the hand of a father, a son, a slave. She moved through the story like it was her stage. But the spotlight dimmed when truth caught up. It was not legacy she honored. It was narrative she hijacked. A path paved in shortcuts, not scars. There was no trial, no blood, no failure, just strength without suffering, and triumph without tension. Her victories came too quickly, her wounds too clean. The galaxy did not shape her. She shaped it, bending myth to match her outline. And what was left behind was a story that forgot how to bleed, how to breathe, how to endure. And still, we wanted to believe that maybe this was the next hope, that maybe the story had room for someone new, someone unshackled by history. But hope without hardship is illusion. An illusion cannot hold the weight of legacy. What began as wonder faded into repetition, and repetition cannot carry the soul of a saga. In this video, we dismantle the myth of Rey as the Chosen One. We expose the cracks in her arc, the shortcuts in her story, and the deeper cost of replacing struggle with spectacle. This is not just a critique, it's a reckoning, a return to what the Force once meant, and what it lost when destiny became a mistake. There was a time when the Force felt sacred. It moved through the Skywalker bloodline like a whispered promise. Anakin was born of prophecy. Luke was molded by loss. But Rey, she arrived without echo or lineage. She entered the saga, not as a continuation, but a contradiction. The first time we met her, she was already waiting, already powerful, already certain. There was no awakening, no cost, no transformation, just a scavenger who knew too much and changed too little. Her strength was not earned, it was scripted. She moved through trials that never tested her, faced darkness that never touched her. Every challenge slid off her shoulders like water on stone, as if the galaxy had bent itself to serve her tale. But storytelling is not about ease, it is about effort. Anakin fell. Luke struggled. Their pain made them real. Their failures made them unforgettable. But Rey, she leapt over the very things that made her predecessors human, and in doing so, she erased the weight of legacy. She was not the Chosen One. She was a rewrite of it, a placeholder in a prophecy she was never part of, a symbol built from shortcuts, not sacrifice. The Force is supposed to take something when it gives something. It demands balance. It punishes arrogance. It tests resolve. But Rey was handed everything without bleeding for any of it. Her journey was all gain, no loss. She mastered the Force without guidance. She defeated Kylo without training. She wielded a lightsaber like she was born with it. But birthright was never hers, and still, the story bent to make her unstoppable. Her power existed in a vacuum. It's not that she was strong, it's that she was unearned. There's no awe in watching someone who can't fail. No thrill in watching someone who never doubts. She didn't climb a mountain. She appeared at the summit, already crowned. When you take away struggle, you take away meaning. The story becomes hollow. The victories become weightless. The Force becomes a party trick instead of a philosophy. It's not her strength that broke the story. It's her invincibility. What could have been a new chapter became a parody of the past. What should have inspired awe only left behind apathy. Because greatness without scars is just spectacle, not story. The Skywalker legacy was carved through generations of pain. Anakin gave his soul to darkness. Luke gave his innocence to war. Even Leia gave her future for peace. And together, they formed a myth greater than themselves. But Rey was a spark that never earned the fire. She stood above their graves and took their name. But she did not carry their weight. She did not feel their burdens. She did not echo their journeys. She inherited everything and honored nothing. Their sacrifices became her stepping stones. Their deaths became her backdrop. And somehow, we were told this was closure. But closure comes from resolution, not erasure. The story of Star Wars was never just about victory. It was about consequences, about choices that rippled across galaxies, about how power corrupts and how love redeems. But Rey never had to learn those truths. She was simply told them, and so the saga ended not with wisdom, but with amnesia. The torch was not passed, it was dropped. And what was once a myth became merchandise. They tried to make her into a god, born from nowhere, chosen by no one. They draped her in prophecy she never fulfilled. They handed her sabers she never earned, and names she never deserved, as if legacy was something to be stolen, not lived. The moment she called herself a Skywalker, the silence of the galaxy screamed louder than words. It wasn't homage, it was hijacking. Not respect, but revision. They erased the pain that built the Skywalkers and replaced it with imitation. They told us blood didn't matter, then revealed she was a Palpatine. They said names didn't define you, then gave her someone else's. They wanted to have it both ways. To erase the past while profiting from it. To move forward while staying still. There is a difference between resurrection and reincarnation. What rose at the end was not the soul of the saga, but a hollow echo, a mimic of myth wearing borrowed robes. With no scars to match the story she claimed to conclude, it was not rebirth, it was branding. Not hope renewed, but heritage replaced. And we were expected to celebrate it as destiny. There was potential in Rey, it's easy to forget. Beneath the layers of convenience, she had the seeds of something special. A girl abandoned, surviving alone, searching for purpose in the silence of sand and sky. That beginning had truth. She could have been the echo of pain that shaped the galaxy. A mirror held up to Anakin, not in blood, but in spirit. The kind of soul who could have fallen into darkness, clawed her way back, and forged a new balance without prophecy. A wild card in a rigged game. Imagine her broken, rejected, unsure, facing the pull of both heritage and identity, wrestling with the truth that sometimes power is a curse, not a gift. Her struggle could have meant something. Her growth could have reflected real change, not packaged redemption. There were glimpses, flickers in her eyes when she stood over a burning tree, or when she screamed in the silence of nowhere. But they were never allowed to bloom, never allowed to breathe. The story suffocated her possibilities with plot armor and answers too easy. And so her tragedy isn't that she failed. It's that she was never allowed to try. She was denied the flaws that make characters unforgettable, the heartbreak that forges heroes, the doubt that creates destiny. She could have been a legend reborn. Instead, she was a footnote rewritten. Stories are not immortal. They must be nurtured, challenged, understood. Star Wars thrived because it asked hard questions. It endured because it let its heroes fall. It inspired because it respected pain. But that rhythm was broken, and the song lost its soul. Rey was not the end, but the symptom of an ending. A character crafted with spectacle, but no center. A vessel for nostalgia, not vision. Her rise was not earned, it was enforced. Not a crescendo, but a shortcut to silence. What collapsed with her arc was not just a trilogy, but a philosophy. The idea that greatness must be built, that destiny demands loss, was buried beneath lights and lineage. And in chasing legacy, they forgot to live it. There could have been healing. There could have been a new beginning that bowed to the old and honored its weight. Instead, we were given imitation, handed identity, sold closure with none of the cost. The saga was not passed down, it was put on pause. But even endings teach us something. Even failure speaks. And if we're listening, we'll remember what made Star Wars eternal. It was never perfection, it was pain, sacrifice, family, choice. And somewhere in that truth, maybe the next story will rise. Not from expectation, but from understanding.